um prazer falar com vocês que estão aí. Parabéns mais uma vez. Contem comigo para o que vocês precisarem. Preciso dizer que sou apaixonado pelo programa. O Guilherme já sabe, não preciso nem comentar também. É um programa sensacional. Brilha os olhos só de falar dele. Então, deixo aí com o grande Guilherme, que ele levou nosso programa a níveis assim no Brasil jamais vistos.
Fico sem graça quando você fala desse jeito.
Mas não precisa não, porque você merece. Você foi sensacional no processo do ano passado. Então, a gente tem tudo esse ano. Vocês têm uma referência aí para se apoiar. E por que não, esse ano, de novo, a gente estar no top 5, né? E aí ter o vencedor também global. Por que não?
Esse ano, menos de top 1 eu não aceito.
Isso mesmo. Eu vou deixar
Tranquila
vocês...
essa meta, né? Bem tranquila a meta.
Vou deixar vocês interagindo aí, tá bom? O velho vai se retirar.
O velho. Então, gente, acho que já deu uns minutinhos para vocês conversarem um pouco, a gente viu um pouquinho, a gente vai interagir um pouco da sessão. Só queria entender com vocês, antes de a gente começar a falar para valer, em inglês de vocês, façam... Como que tá? Show?
Show.
So we're going to be switching languages right now because we have a very special guest. If she wants to present herself, perhaps.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
So, perfect. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I dialed in twice, so I just wanted to see if everyone could see me. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Lim. I am the 2019 Global CEO for 1 month, so the CEO for 1 month from Hong Kong. So I'm really happy to be here today. Just wanted to come say hi and also share my experience, as G mentioned, but very excited.
Great. So Sophia is actually in Taipei. You're right now,
Yes.
right? Yes.
Yes.
So it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Taipei. So we're kind of giving it a stretch over here, but we hope it all works out in the end. So I just activated Siri. Sorry. So we'll be dividing this webinar in 3 main parts. First, we're going to be presenting ourselves. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself. So Sophia is going to present herself a little bit more. Then we're going to do just a quick view of the program highlights. So what were the shiniest moments of the program for us? And we hope this will be quick. It won't take more than 10 or 15 minutes at most. And then we go straight to the Q&A. So you guys probably have questions. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. So everyone hears it? Loud and clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
So beginning talking a little about myself then. I'm a computer engineering undergraduate. So this actually came as a surprise to some of you guys, and I was surprised by that because some of you guys talked to me on WhatsApp and you thought I was already working. So no, I'm actually still at college right now. 5th year of computer engineering at the Federal University of São Carlos. Currently, because of the pandemic, we're not having classes. So I don't know how longer will it take for me to graduate, but we're hoping it will be soon. But so far I had some work experiences at college. So I was part of a junior enterprise, and I know some of you guys have been part of a junior enterprise as well. I was part of the Enactus team at my university. I know at least one of you guys is part of an Enactus network as well. Who is it? Is the person here who is from
here.
Enactus? Because
Yeah, I'm Bruno. I'm from Enactus here in USP São Carlos. Camila is also from Enactus. I think she's on the call with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
but what I've seen, Camila Kelly is from Enactus, but
Exactly.
what I've seen about her on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, so cool. Enactus is a global initiative, so it's very cool as well. But so far, the CEO for a month that I spent here in Brazil was actually my first work experience, because this program is widely focused on youth employment. So its main focus is youth employment. So it doesn't matter if you have 10 experiences under your belt. What matters is if you fit the profile that we're looking for. So that's what matters the most throughout the process. Can you be authentic? Can you really shine through what you got the best? So if you can do that throughout the process, you're the candidate we're looking for. So Sophia will also be able to talk about that. So that's basically my background. It's not a very wide background, but it fits the purpose. So I'm sure yours fits as well. So I'll head it over to Sophia.
Cool. Thank you. So hi, everyone. First of all, I forgot to say thank you for staying up a little bit because I do know it is quite late. It is also quite early for me, but I really appreciate that you guys did do that. So let me just give you guys a quick introduction of myself. So you can call me Sophia, and I was originally born in Hong Kong. I grew up in Shanghai, so I grew up in China. And for university, I studied my undergraduate in a program called the World Bachelor in Business. So it's a joint program between a Hong Kong university, Bocconi University in Italy, and a university in the US called the University of Southern California. So I actually got the opportunity to go to all three universities. And because of this, I ended up staying in the United States for 1 year after I graduated. I worked as a technology consultant, and then, visa stuff, the US. So then I had to come back to China. So I currently actually work in China, but because of COVID, I got stuck here in Taiwan. So as G mentioned, I'm currently in Taipei working. I currently do work in consulting. And I guess my experience to say before CEO for 1 month was my work experience at Deloitte. So I actually worked 1 year before joining the CEO for 1 month. And as G mentioned, there is no cutoff for how old you have to be or how much experience you have to have, because you have people from all backgrounds that have worked, that have not worked, that have businesses that study comp sci or study business, study psychology. So it's very unique in that aspect. And then just to build off a little bit of what was mentioned already, my own experience, of course, was very similar to a lot of what the other countries or CEOs for 1 month will have. And for me, particularly in Hong Kong, I think just to share a little bit on kind of that experience for me, because I guess that might be the only more different part. But for me, at least, the Hong Kong team is quite small. So we only have like the Adecco, the Spring, and small the Harrison team. So for me, the CEO for 1 month program up until, when I met G in the global boot camp was with a small tight-knit group. And I would have to say that one of the biggest takeaways for me is really just having the opportunity to meet a bunch of really amazing people. So the people that you meet in this room, the 50 of you in the room, and then, a lot of the program organizers and, maybe even more CEOs for 1 month that you meet along the way, for me was definitely like one of the greatest takeaways. But do we want to maybe start talking a little bit more about like the highlight of the programs, or is there anything else you want me to touch upon?
Porque eu tô só tenho aqui numa chamada.
Yeah, we have a third special guest.
Oh.
An unexpected guest. Just gonna wait a bit for him, but
Guilherme. Sorry, I received the call. Sophia, how are you? Do you know who I am, Sophia? Do you remember me?
Oh, hey! Is this crap, so many names.
Dear Sophia, we've met in Mexico City 3 months ago.
Yes.
With Mr. Alain de Haas, André Vicente.
I remember. And we took a photo.
Exactly. We took lots of photos in Mexico City. You stay right behind me, right next to me in the dinner.
Yes. And don't forget, there was also Malta, where I believe you did get some awards to bring home.
Exactly. We were in Malta as well, in Europe.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks a lot for your presence here. I'm so happy to be here with you, with Guilherme, and all the 50 candidates that we have here. Hi guys, I hope you are doing great.
Hi.
I really want to hear. I would like to be here to listen everything your questions, your marks. But as you can understand, we are in the beginning of the month. We are finishing our month in terms of revenues, and I'm still in calls. To close this subject. But I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And whoa, it's so good to have you, Sophia, as well with the call. It's so great. I'm sure you have lots of histories to share. But mostly, I would like to give a big hug to all the candidates. I'm looking forward to meet all, and of course to be with the one elected. Guilherme, it's the reference, is the big reference that we have. Of course, Sophia, you know, when you leave the call, we'll say that Guilherme should be the previous global CEO for 1 month. You know that we are supporting Brazil always, right? But it's really incredible, everything. I'm so exciting and to meet all, and I'm sure that you can share that it's a great experience. And the best experience that I can share with you guys all is that I've met Sophia twice, and the both times I've met her in 2 continents of the world. One, it was in North America, and the other was in Europe. So probably I will look, next time we'll meet in Asia or Africa. That will be great.
Yes, let me tell Alon about that. Maybe we can get that organized.
Well, great. When are you thinking to come back to Latin America? Confess, it's the best
that's
continent.
also
It's the best region you've met.
That's true, huh? Maybe, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna pitch that idea. Good idea.
Hey guys, Guilherme, Ariel, I don't know if you have any question, but I'm so happy to hear you, Guilherme. I want after this pandemic, after the Corona, I want your presence here.
Sure, I'll be sure to come right after this pandemic passes.
Guys, do you want to ask me something? Do you please? I'm really happy to be here.
Come on, guys, it's your chance.
I actually had a question. Wait, I wrote it down so I don't forget.
Sure.
Because, lots of thoughts. I was reading that Adecco has that code of conduct, right? And I also noticed that the actions that, the whole group had when facing the pandemic was actually much nicer than lots of companies we've seen. As we can see, the program CEO for a month actually working. So I wanted to know if the code of conduct, if and how the code of conduct had any influence on that, or if it was just any kind of proactive measures, or just watching what someone did in Europe or Asia, for example.
So tell me the first question, because the question, because I confess I didn't hear the first part.
I'm sorry, this microphone is weird. So I wanted to know if the code of conduct that I read, if it helped in any way, and if it helped, how, to keep up the program, the CEO over 1 month program, or if it was just by looking at how Asia or Europe branches and the market reacted that the other Adecco branches managed to move in the chaos?
It is a good question. It's a good question. I'll try to answer as much information as I'm able to. But this situation, one of the difference, one of the most curious facts that it has is that what passes in Asia, it's very different from what passes in Europe, and what passes in Europe is very different than we are facing here in Latin America.
Yeah.
As you know, the situation in Europe, and in particular in Spain or in Italy or in France or even in the US, it's very different from we are facing here in Brazil, and very different in the different parts of the Latin American countries. So Adecco globally has, of course, by its corporate, has defined like a plan, a manual, in order for the countries to proceed, but allowed each country to proceed in accordance with their local situation. In Brazil, what we have tried to do, it was mostly to be fully attached or always very near with the health minister. And you know that the situation here sometimes has a bit turbulence. It's very uncertain. The government doesn't pass as well a clear message, but in the end, as company, you have to know what is your main values and what you want to protect as much as possible. From the day one, we have tried to protect our people, our person, our branches, not only and assuring that we would give them all the tools for them to be safe and be productive. So we tried as much as possible to try to follow what the group was asking us to do globally, but always with a local perspective. And that is why it's very difficult, or it was a challenge for all the countries to achieve a good record of reaction to this extraordinary situation, because in each country it was completely different. For example, if you go to the region, if you go to Latin America, you will see that the situation in Peru, or the way that the government in Peru reacts to this situation is completely different than the one that they react here in Brazil, or in Brazil completely different from in Mexico. In Mexico, for example, it was very particular. In the US, we all see the news, and we all know what was the situation there. So the main message is saying that we try to follow as much as possible what corporate was advises to go, but always on a local perspective, and always having two pillars. One, protect as much as possible our people. That should be the main focus, and be productive as much as possible. So it was in the balance. We tried to do our best. We probably tried to take all the good measures, but sometimes it's very difficult as well. I don't know if this answers to your question.
No, it does. It was a much better answer than I was hoping for. Thank you. And
Thank you.
We can definitely see that those two pillars are very much in action. It's very nice to see that one can plan. Well, of course, nobody expects a pandemic, but you can plan
For sure.
it for per day.
Yes, it's very as it was extraordinary, and it was very fast, very quick. It was a challenge for all the countries and for all the companies. And this reality doesn't happen only with the companies like Adecco and in our industry. It happened with all the companies. So as you can imagine, there That's why the leadership is so important in these moments, and the local perspective, because in the end we are prisoners of our decisions. And what I should recommend to all the leaders, and we'll have a webinar next Tuesday where we will speak about it, is that we should take decisions accordingly to the rules of the government in terms of health, but at the same time be productive. But at the same time be productive. We cannot stop the business, because if we stop the business at the long term, we'll have to face another type of challenges. So I hope this answers to the questions, to the question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Guilherme, I have a question for all of you, for Guilherme, Sophia, and André.
Sure.
Can I catch a break of your speech, André?
Sure.
As you said, like there are different countries and different kinds of politics. How, as a CEO, like for the three of you, as a CEO, how would you position yourself into global politics according to Adecco's values? How do you behave? How do you act? How do you see what is happening globally in global terms?
Well, I can start with the answer. What I think that we do, what we've done, or we try to do here in Brazil, we try really to, as much as possible, not only having decisions. Well, when I'm compared to the other countries, of course, we try to have decisions to protect the people and to ensure that the business should continue. But as much as possible to try, and I think that it was one of our biggest differences. And we just recently received the Great Place to Work inquiry, and the answers that we've seen is that the people were very pleased for us to be fully transparent in the communication. We on a weekly basis we always had lives with all the people that are part of the Adecco group here, and we are having 200 people here. And I think the evaluation that I have is basically the Great Place to Work inquiry, and you know that the Great Place to Work is well, it's a good tool to understand if people are satisfied or not. And you know, we are one of the best Great Place to Work here in Brazil. And the people recognized it, and with this tool, we think we had a good response. Of course, it's never perfect. Sometimes we are all people. We have all feelings and emotions, but in the end, generally speaking, I think the feedback was quite good. I don't have the results from other countries, but I think we did have a good response here in Brazil. I pass the ball to Guilherme because he was a very good. He was always, from an external point of view, was always seeing the situation. Guilherme, I pass the ball to you because the question was addressed to you as well.
Sure thing. So from a totally external perspective, so to speak, because I was a CEO for a month in July, but I wasn't working alongside with Adecco throughout the pandemic. But see, Adecco already had some plans to go to home office. So they were already starting to implement a home office policy. And we could see, I would talk to the people that I used to talk to throughout my month, and they would all make it very clear. So we already had within Adecco this transition kind of in place. So it was kind of a switch that was already 10% flipped. We only flipped it the remaining 90%. So Adecco-wise, this was very good. And Adecco, as a human resources group, has this responsibility to lead the way for other human resources companies. We got to lead the way to other people that we work alongside with. So if we don't show them a great answer, how can the other companies that we work for, the companies that look after us, can mimic this behavior on them. So we have this great deal of responsibility when doing that. So Andre by far has been doing a fantastic job on that. I've been talking to Ariel a lot as well, and you can see how they are really leading the way on going full home office and providing the tools necessary, of course, always with compliance measures working alongside. We do have a lot of compliance measures in place so we can do it the best way possible, making sure that people's health is always in the first place. And second of all, how do you keep the business running while keeping the health of everyone involved? So it's been quite a challenge. I know some of the guys in the commercial team are having a crazy time doing meetings all the time, and sometimes the workload may have increased instead of decreased, but that's part of the thing. We're getting through this pandemic and we're getting through it well. So it's basically the best example that I've had so far of a human resources company. Recently, I don't know if you guys have seen, but I was reading about it internationally. Adecco partnered with two other big companies, which are Randstad and Manpower Group, so we can start moving towards a home office perspective. So that's very good because it shows that Adecco is able to go beyond the basic I'm a company A and you're a company B. We're able to show that we can work together towards a better workplace environment for everyone. So that's quite the slogan, make the future work for everyone. We're doing that by home office throughout this pandemic and it's going out very well. So that's my view of the things. I'll give it on to Sophia right now.
Sure. So I think, you know, Andre and G mentioned a lot of the things that I would have touched upon too. Maybe sharing a little bit more on my perspective, because it might have been a little bit different in a sense that, like in Asia, work from home is quite a foreign concept and it's not exactly as widely adopted as maybe in some other countries. But I would say, at least from Hong Kong and what I've heard and what I've seen is because we also had some political issues back in November. So before COVID broke out, we were already having a lot of work from home. And even when I was interning in Hong Kong, you know, sometimes protests would prevent people from coming to work and things like this. So at times where maybe, you know, your normal work cadence is kind of disrupted, we have seen a lot of work from home. So for me, at least, what I've witnessed is the company, at least locally in Hong Kong, you know, we've shifted this mentality. You've shifted from this mentality of I have to be at work with a desktop, you know, sitting next to other people I'm working with, to being able to work from home, using a lot of new digital tools, collaborating in a different way. Of course, you know, there are hiccups at first, but you see that people are adapting to this new way of working. And I think that's kind of a big theme that goes anywhere in the world, is the shift in mindset and kind of shift in culture of how we work. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I just wanted to mention is, at least my also somewhat external view of how Adecco has dealt with this, is I think a very unique position that Adecco is in is that they're the thought leaders, they're the advisors for a lot of governments, for a lot of organizations when it comes to human resources, right? So they're the ones that can go out and say, hey, here's some research that we did, here's what we've seen in all the countries that we're in. Here's what we think will happen next in the labor market. So I've also seen, you know, a lot more like participation, a lot of collaborations, a lot of like interviews, a lot of reports coming out on, you know, their view. And I think Adecco is so uniquely positioned, number one, because they are a market leader. You know, they're in an industry that does touch everyone, because everyone needs human resources, right? So I've seen a lot more kind of increase in that area, and I find it quite fascinating. You know, you hear a lot, and you hear all the different the country managers or managing directors talk about this, and I think especially during this pandemic, it's even more evident. And I think it's pretty cool. You see that they care and that they are contributing to the world, not only like in a business sense, but also to the world in general. So just my 2 cents on this.
That's great.
Thank you for your answers. This pandemic for sure is going to change how we see things for this century and next centuries.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your answer.
I have a question for
just so we can wrap this up, we're going to be doing our question then. I was going to say, let's do one quick last question to Andre, and then we can move on throughout the CEO for a month thing. Can we do that?
Yes.
Sure. So go on. One last question to Andre.
I would be, to be honest, I would be delighted to be here all night, all evening, talk to you. But I confess, I need to go. But I would be delighted to stay here. But please, shoot.
Can I ask a question?
I have a question, but you can go.
Sure.
It's a quick, short question. Actually, it's just about the program. I'd like to know how Andrea, as a recruiter or as the CEO, see the impact of the the one selected on this program, like Guilherme or Sophia, when you're recruiting someone or when you're gonna work with was the CEO for 1 month. How much impact do you think it has in the professional profile of the person?
Sorry, your name?
My name is Alexandre.
Alexandre, I think your question, because I heard with the certain breaks, I've understood that what it's my expectation of in terms of a CEO for 1 month is this your question, right? Because I didn't hear all the question.
Not just the expectations, but when you work with someone like Guilherme or Sophia that was already had the experience as the CEO for 1 month, how much do you see it causes in the professional profile of this person? Like if you don't know Guilherme yet, but this was the 1 month, this probably may have a huge impact on your, I don't know.
Okay, I'll try to be assertive in the answer. So, what is the most fascinating thing in this program, and I'm sure Sophia and Guilherme can confirm, is that we as leaders, we are always very busy, and that's important, of course. We are always very busy. We have always to make very important decisions all days, and we miss a lot someone. We miss a lot. See the view or to see what from another perspective the things. For me, what I've learned and what I've learned more from Guilherme was this disruptive innovation form it was his disruptive form of he looking into our business. The biggest reminder that I have with Guilherme was the presentation of his work. He was able to fully understand our business and challenging us in having a solution that it was afterwards it was presented from a different from a completely different perspective that I would ever think about it, and saying, wow, this would add so much value to the operation, and this could be a great idea in terms of innovation, in terms of entrepreneurism. So what I think for all the CEOs is what do they get? It's the learning, and it is the different perspective from a very important universe, which are the you guys that have ages until 25, which come from a different type of reality that we have from our experience, from our recent, of course, from our growth. This I would say is the biggest achievement and the most challenging part of it. I don't know if this answers to your question, and to finalize and to finish the reply, is that I remember when we were electing the final three or the final the real one, the final candidate for the CEO for 1 month. We had like a mini committee of decision, and I remember that my question to all was this: hey guys, well, of course we understand that these 5 guys or these 10 guys are very good, but with who would we choose if you want to put Brazil as CEO for 1 month globally? Who would win if we decided to be? Who would be the guy that, besides the technical part, has charisma, can share an idea, can motivate everybody around to follow his idea and to follow his appliance to the global CEO for 1 month. So what I'm trying to say is that it's very important. It's very important. The technical part, you have to be good technical in terms of ideas, in terms of what you are doing. But there is a very important part, and I really recognize that to Sophia in the way that she was always very communicative in the events that I've shared with her in Mexico and in Malta, is that the way that is able to talk with all the leaders and to receive their attention. And Guilherme, of course, he has lots of charisma, and he was able to get that. Yeah, that's the learning parts that I would like to share with you.
Oh,
thank you so much.
So,
guys, I really need to close, but I really want to thank Sophia. It was very, very good to talk to you, Sophia. Guilherme, sempre baita prazer falar contigo. Quero-te aqui na próxima, quando esta pandemia louca passar, quero-te aqui, e a todos vocês, o que eu vos desejo é toda a sorte. Vão com o coração, porque sem coração vocês não conseguem nada do programa, nem muito menos da vida. Então tudo o que vocês quiserem na vida tem que ser com o coração. Vocês têm que se divertir muito, porque tudo o resto se torna muito mais fácil. A capacidade de trabalho, a forma como a gente chega nos nossos objetivos, todo o percurso e toda a viagem é muito mais deliciosa e muito mais saborosa. Então nada, Ariel, obrigado também. Thanks, Sophia, and thanks a lot, guys. Tchau, tchau.
Tchau, obrigado, André.
Talking to you.
Tchau.
Bye bye.
great. So that was the CEO doing a surprise within the surprise. I was actually warned of his presence an hour before the webinar, so I wasn't expecting him until the end, but he's quite the character, and I'm sure that the one that gets selected within you guys will have a blast working with him. It was really nice. So just so we can have a view of the schedule, how we're going to proceed with this webinar, we were thinking of 60 minutes, but possible to extend until 90 minutes. If Q&A is going well and we still have a lot of questions, then we'll be able to extend it for up to 90 minutes. So I think we already touched a bit within the Q&A on this, but there's still a lot more to talk about, specifically about the program. So I will do a quick view of the program highlights in our opinions right now. So I have a couple of them sketched up here. Then I'll pass the ball to Sophia. She'll talk a little bit about anything that she wants to on that perspective, and then we'll move on to Q&A. Can we do that? I think it won't be more than 10 minutes.
Sure. Yes.
Cool. So I was trying to come up with a list of 5 things that would be the most memorable ones, but also ones you guys could connect with before going through the experience. And it's unfortunate that we're not able to take 50 CEOs for a month. As much as we want to, unfortunately, there's not a place for 50 CEOs for a month. but I'm sure all you guys already had a bit of a blast, and you will have a lot more blasts, so to speak, throughout the rest of the process. So I remember this part may not be able to, you guys may not be able to connect as much because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but when I was selected, until the time that I was starting to work in July, I was selected by the end of May. I was going to São Paulo. I live around 2.5 hours from São Paulo, almost on a weekly basis, just to talk to the people and get a feeling of what I was going to face. You guys are not going to be able to do that in person, but I'm sure something similar will happen virtually, so you won't lose touch with the experience. I'm sure it'll be memorable as well. I remember on my first week, they already had my schedule planned, and that was a bit of a surprise as well. I never had someone plan a schedule for me. And when I wasn't least expecting it, Ariel would come to me and say, "Hey, you have lunch with the president of LHH." I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to go to that because the schedule is already planned for me." And in the end, I end up meeting the guy. The guy's fantastic to talk with. If you have the chance, sure, this will be part of the amazing experience you guys will have. This Sophia may be able to relate to as well, but when the global announcement was made, it was on an Instagram live, and I remember going to my balcony and started shouting that I was selected. It was quite a blast for me as well. It was early in the morning, so I probably woke up half the building, but I wasn't caring very much. But that was a blast for me as well. Throughout the boot camp, the global boot camp was an awesome experience. It was 3 days fully immersive with a lot of great people and the connections you make in the end, because the program doesn't fully end when it says it ends. Because you have built your network with a lot of great folks at Adecco, with a lot of great folks from other places that you met in the way. And I can safely say that I have not only a larger network, but a network of people that I value a lot. So I can really talk to those people if I want to. I can just hit them up with a LinkedIn message, and I'm sure they'll be answering me. And we could just talk and share the experiences and basically talk from either the future of work or what is his favorite beer, for example. So that is very great to captivate throughout the way. So there were a couple of highlights for me. I'll pass the bus to Sophia.
Cool. So I guess if I had to highlight maybe like a few moments as well, actually a lot of them are quite similar to what G mentioned. But at least for me, I think one of the first and greatest highlights, actually my experience was kind of different in a sense that in Hong Kong, I had no schedule. I had to make up my own schedule. So as you can tell, like it really depends on like the CEO or your country manager or whatever, and kind of like their style. So I had this opposite experience, but nonetheless, I did a lot of the same thing. You know, I also did have lunch with our LHH director and things like that. But because I had this, I guess, so-called freedom, I got to do a lot of smaller projects on the side, which I found really rewarding. So at the beginning, on the first or second day, you know, I sat down with Janet, who was our Hong Kong's managing director, and she was like, "All right, so like, you know, we want to give you a small project. What do you want to do?" And specifically, she wanted to focus on how to engage more university students, because she's like, "Okay, you were just in university, like, yeah, it's been like a lot of years since I was. So what are some perspectives you can give?" So then I got to do a lot of like small events. You know, we engaged a lot of universities. So for me, it was nice to be able to own a project and to do something. And the fact that the company was like supportive, you know, gave me resources to do so, I thought was really cool. So then at the end, I got to do like a mini resume or CV workshop, got to talk to a bunch of university students that came to Adecco to learn more about the company, learn more about the CEO for Women, the program, and all the other programs that Adecco has. So that was probably my first highlight. And then to give you some context, I think, I had a very similar experience, because at the time of the top 10 announcement, I was in San Francisco, and it was 3 a.m. in the morning when they made the announcement. And I think around 1 a.m., I was like, all right, should I go to bed? because I was obviously a little bit nervous. I was like, oh, I don't know. But I was like, should I go to bed or should I just wake up and hope for good news, right? So I chose to go to bed. But I think what really stuck with me is when they announced it, my sister was awake. So she came over, she woke me up. She's like, you made it. And I was like, oh, okay. And, I went back to sleep. And then when I woke up in the morning, I saw a lot of messages that were coming in from Hong Kong, and people like my managing director, like she was trying to call me. Of course I was asleep, but she was like trying to call me. I got a lot of warm messages. And I think this goes to say about how much the people care about you. And especially in my case, right, like my Hong Kong team really does care about you. And I'm sure for G, the same thing applies. Like the local team is very supportive of you, even as you proceed to global. And then of course, third is the global boot camp. Definitely probably like the highlight of my year last year were those 3 days and being able to spend it with a group of very, very amazing people. I think I was very impressed with everyone that I met there. Of course, you go in very nervous, not knowing what to expect. They don't tell you anything. So there's, a lot of like surprises along the way. But I think my greatest takeaway from there is being able to see so many great people from around the world come together, but also be able to we did like small teamworks and small projects together and be able to see the product that we were able to make by sharing our different perspective. I thought was very cool. And of course it was a lot of fun. And then the last thing I just wanted to point out is my own experience with being around the world with Alan. I think my greatest highlight was on the first day that I met him. I told him, I am convinced that you are a robot, because there is no human way possible that you can do this as a full-time job. So I think it's very admirable and very, very unique to be able to see so many great leaders at the Adecco group and how they operate. It's fascinating, and it's very amazing to be able to see how they can be so disciplined, how they can go around the world, how they're always like at 100%, and they seem to always be able to provide all this insights. So to me, I think it's just amazing to be able to get that opportunity to witness and to see these different types of leaders at work. So that's kind of my 2 cents on my experience, as well as some of the highlights for me.
Sure. So great talk from Sophia, and now we're going to move on to what was most expected from the webinar, the Q&A. So we have 2 ways of doing that. You guys can do either by the chat, or you can ask the question. So if we only have 1 person speaking, we'll do that. If we have 10 people speaking at the same time, we'll probably do it on the chat. So just see how that rolls. So it's up to you guys.
Can I ask something, please?
Sure. Yeah, someone starts asking and we'll see if that works or not.
Okay, I will do that. Okay. So hi, I would like you guys to make a comparison and what you think about the program before and after you really worked with as a CEO. So what's were the differences in your perspective about the program?
Sophia seems to have a really funny answer. I'll let her start.
Yeah. So for some context, I actually during my university, there was one summer where I was looking for a summer internship, and I found a row at Microsoft in Hong Kong. And it was actually an Adecco row. So Adecco was helping staff a lot of the temporary staff at Microsoft. So I was hired by Adecco to go work at Microsoft. But at the time, I had no idea what Adecco was. But I know this name. I was like, oh, Adecco pays me. As long as someone pays me, I'm okay, right? So this was back in, I think, 2016 or so. So it was a couple years ago. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then when I didn't even find the CEO for Women program, my dad did. He saw an article on WeChat. So it was by, it was like all in Chinese, and my Chinese is not too amazing. So he sent me an article and was like, hey, you should apply to this program. It seems kind of cool. And I read it, and I think my first impression was like, oh, is this real? Like, it seems a little too good to be real, right? Like, you get paid, you get to learn from business leaders, you basically get to be a CEO for a month. And that sounds too good to be true. So that was my first impression. But of course, because I had worked with Adecco before, you know, I knew that the company was real. It wasn't like a scam or anything. And then I started talking to people at Adecco, and you know, people mentioned like, oh yeah, like it's a great program. You know, there are all these things to look forward to. And at the time, I was looking for actually a full-time job, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to apply to this as well, but I did, and I'm really, really glad that I did. And then of course, you know, I went through the whole program. I learned a lot. I met a lot of people, and I think coming out of it, my greatest, like what I usually tell people now is I think this is probably the most unique opportunity you will ever get in your life. I think you guys heard about my university experience, right? Like I went to 3 different schools, like that's already pretty unique, but I think this is even more unique in that there is no one else doing it. Like no other company will let you just go and follow their CEO for a month. So you can tell that like the Adecco group really does care about hearing our perspective. They really care about, you know, tackling youth unemployment, as G mentioned. So to me, I think it's just so unique is really like the best way I can put it.
It's great. So just before I give my answer, I'm seeing some chat around the chat over here to cue the questions. So what I think would be a great way to do that, just so we don't have 100 questions in the chat, would be to, you guys can send them privately to me. There's an option to send them privately, because probably a lot of the questions will be the same for more than one person. So that way I can filter the questions better, and we can do like one question that answers 5 different people. So can we do that?
Guilherme, I gave an idea that we could try like writing on the chat who's going to be next. Like if I want to be the next one to make a question, I say I'm next. And then someone has another question, says I'm after William. And then we make a short list and just make the question by video.
The idea is to send our names or questions. I mean,
no, that is a great idea. The only problem is that we might be having a lot one question that pops out more than other questions. So maybe the best idea is not to necessarily answer the first question, but the question that gets asked the most. So that would be the most efficient way to answer as much people as possible. So if you guys can send them to me privately, perhaps we can cover more ground that more people want to be covered, per se. So we're going to be doing that. Some people already started asking me questions privately over here. After I answer this one, then I'll start selecting the questions. And can we do that?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is my view before and after the program, right? I just lost a bit of it over here.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Exactly.
So before the program, I hadn't worked with Adecco before. Like Sophia, I knew who Adecco was, but that was it. I only knew what Adecco was. So I saw this Facebook ad talking about CEO for a month, which is a program that you get to travel the world with the CEO. And I thought the same thing Sophia did. I thought this is too good to be true. So I'll apply over here and I won't mind it. I'll just wait and see if something pops out on my mailbox. If it pops, great. If it doesn't, well, we'll try next time. But it was quite great news when I received that I was in. When I sent in my CV and my motivation. And then after the program, basically I didn't know the program before. So afterwards, it's only good things to talk about. I mean, that's not to say that there won't be moments where you'll be a bit more thinkative per se, but mostly awesome experiences with the leadership, awesome experiences with the folks at Adecco, awesome experiences worldwide. We had some visits throughout my month with great and important people from Adecco all over the world, and I was always able to talk to them. So that was very motivating, and in the end, it's about youth employment. So Adecco does a great job on hey, we do this thing to work towards youth employment. what can you do? And after Adecco started doing that, actually other companies have started doing similar programs. So we're really leading the way on youth employment programs, and that's really great to see. So now I kind of acquired this wider view that we're really shaping the future of work, and the future of work is our future of work. The youth is the future. So that is really great to know that we're leading the way and I was a part of it. So that is amazing to think about. So let me see the questions over here. There are a lot of questions. Yeah, a lot of folks are asking about tips of the process. What can you do to increase your chances of getting into the program? So, for example, what did you learn from the process, and what tips would you give in order to take the most of it? So that is a great question. Sophia, do you want to start that one, or I start this? What do you want to do?
Sure. So I think the greatest tip that I received during the application process and throughout this whole process is just be authentic, be yourself, and have fun. And I will have to say, every time I heard that, my first reaction was, well, of course, like, what else? Like, of course I'm gonna be authentic and be myself. But after I've gone through this process, I really truly believe in this. So there isn't like a correct person to pick, right? So I think like Andre mentioned, there isn't like a professional criteria you have to meet. Like there isn't, you don't have to like score a certain amount on a test or anything. At the end of the day, what really matters is you being able to present yourself, and also being able to work with the people, right? So you have to be able to work with your CEO, because they do have to be with you for a month. I think that's important to remember. At the end of the day, you're becoming the CEO's like partner, and like you're going to be joined at the hip for a month. So, you know, being able to get along with them. And I think second is truly just to enjoy this journey and to just be yourself, because that's the best version that you can be. I really don't know what other advice I can give, because to me, I think that is kind of what I followed. And I think ultimately that did really like help me in my own journey. As for, I think the other question of like, what did I learn? I think that there I would say more or less 3 things that I learned. First would be like the business knowledge. You know, I never worked in HR before, didn't know much about the industry, didn't really know how it worked. So to me, like learning about Adecco Group, learning about the industry, learning about, you know, the HR industry in general was kind of the first thing that I learned, more technical, I guess. And then second is culture. So being able to see different countries, how they work, you know, there are different dynamics, how you interact with people, what's acceptable in one country may not be acceptable in another country. So to me, being able to witness that was also something that I learned, and something probably I wouldn't have learned another way, or would have taken me longer. And I think the third thing is just being able to see different types of leaders at work. I mean, everyone works differently, but being able to see, hey, like I can work, I can be, you know, more direct, but like have a certain direction, whereas someone else might be, you know, a bit more, maybe a bit more on like on the focus on like, on the people, or maybe more on the numbers. So like being able to see different types of people, yet be in leadership positions, and seeing them on a day-to-day basis was also very unique. So again, like definitely learning about business, learning about culture, and learning about leadership styles.
Yep. So Sophia touched on this really important matter, which is authenticity. And the folks back in the Global Bootcamp will say that all the time. You gotta be authentic. Don't try to be someone that you're not. Be the best version of yourself. And that really counts a lot. So more on the subtle side of things, not so subtle. I spend a lot of times with the guys at Spring Professional, and Spring is a headhunting company that focuses more on mid-high positions, so to speak. And they were part of the committee that interviewed the candidates. And one thing that they talked a lot that really matters, so maybe something that is a little bit more technical, so to speak, No one requires that you are an expert in HR. No one is. I am not. Sophia isn't the expert of HR either. Maybe Andre isn't the expert of HR. We all still have a lot to learn. So Andre touched on that point of reverse mentoring. We all have a lot of things to learn from people, be it the CEO learning from us learning from the CEO, or what's or not. But you gotta at least know what it is, know some of the dynamics of HR. You're not required to be an expert, but you're expected to do at least a little bit of research before you jump into those things. So one great starting point for me is that, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Adecco is a public company in the Swiss stock exchange. So that offers great insight because they have to release annual reports, and they also release a sustainability report. So that can be a great point for you guys to start to get to know a little bit more about the HR business from an Adecco perspective. So that is a great resource of study, so you guys can go into the selection process knowing a little bit of the HR business. But again, no one is expecting that you guys are experts, but this is one thing that really helped me to know, hey, which are the Adecco brands? Which are the main other companies that compete with us? How can I show that I know the business from a analytical point of view, from my point of view? How can I offer my input to make this company better in what they do? So that counts a lot. They want to see your perspective on the business. They want to learn from you. How can they improve the business from your perspective? And they won't be able to do that if you don't give an objective perspective, a direct perspective that can really improve the business. So that can be a great point of start for you guys. Some music going on over there.
Yes.
Anyways, so that was a really great question. I got one question here that appeared twice, which is, after the global bootcamp, do me, Sophia, the other global CEOs keep in touch? Do we speak frequently? Do we collaborate? Do we still talk a lot? So I'll start this one right now, but I'll throw the ball to you in a short time, Sophia. So it's a funny story because when we were selected to the bootcamp, someone made a WhatsApp group right from the right at the bat. And we call it, we're still active on that group today. It's called Global Bootcamp Memes. So a lot of memes involved, but a lot of serious stuff going on as well. And we had this WhatsApp group before the official group from the guys that were going to be telling us instructions. So we had two parallel groups throughout the bootcamp. We had the serious group where we would do the serious stuff, and we had the memes group where we would send the memes. So we still keep a little bit of that culture in place. So it's really nice. We really talk to each other. Sometimes we do calls, especially with the global team, on initiatives that they're thinking about for the Global CEO for a Month program and how can they improve on that. So they're always seeking feedback from us. So that's really good. But that's the ball to you, Sophie.
Yeah, definitely. I think, after the global boot camp, even as I was traveling with Alan, I still try to meet up with the people that I've met. So, when I was in Switzerland, I met Yasmina. When I was in Belgium, I met Casper. Like, whenever I'm around these countries or these places, I do try to find them, because I think what you'll come to learn is that the people that you meet will become your friends. And I'm a firm believer that all the people that I've met on my CEO for 1 month journey are people that I want to be friends with for the rest of my life. So yes, we do keep in touch. I do try to hang out with them as much as I can. And there is one thing that I also wanted to add, which I also shared, I think maybe on my reflection speech, but as I was going through my month with Alon, I don't see my family for a month. I don't go home for a month. So there are times where it does get a little lonely and tricky. So being able to see some of my global bootcamp friends along the way was actually a very big help, because they inevitably became like my support system and became like my friends. So I do think that it is also something very valuable that I I guess I will be honest and say I didn't expect from this program, but that did happen. And you know, I do talk to also some of the global bootcamp people from the previous years, and they all say the same thing. They all keep in touch. You know, some of the I remember very distinctively when when G and I were in Dusseldorf on the first day I arrived. The 2018 Singapore CEO for 1 month send me my schedule before I got my own schedule, because they were still talking. The previous year's global bootcamp people were still talking, and they saw the schedule before I even saw the schedule. So it gives you a sense of how tight and close they become. And I think that's very cool.
Yep. So another question that popped up here 3 or 4 times, but in different ways. What is the aftermath, basically, of the CEO for a Month program? So what opportunities have arisen? How has the perspective changed on our sides? How do we see the world differently? How did that improve us, I believe, both professionally and personally? So that's on you, Sophia.
Oh, interesting. So I guess the aftermath in terms of like career or maybe like job opportunities will differ for people. My own personal experience is a little bit more unique in that I actually, after I got selected as the Hong Kong CEO for 1 month, I also got a full-time job offer. So I actually came into the experience already with a job lined up. So for me, I kind of knew what was going to happen afterwards. But I think just to share a bit about the other Hong Kong CEOs for 1 month is the 2018 and 2017 Hong Kong CEO for 1 month have all chosen to return to Adecco. So they actually now work at Adecco in Hong Kong. And I think it goes to show, at least in my own experience there, is that after the month with them, you know, if they see that you know you work with the company and there is an opportunity, then there is the chance that the group may offer roles or jobs. But of course, this is always dependent on the situation. So career-wise, that was kind of what I saw. And then in terms of kind of my view of the world, or maybe what changed my view after the program, I have a great admiration for the group. I didn't know much about it before, but as you said, they are shaping the future of work. But more importantly, I think it's very important to remember that this company and this industry is in a unique position to be changing people's life very directly, right? You give people jobs, you give people livelihoods for them and for their family, it changes the course of their lives. So you're really able to directly provide impact to others. And to me, I think that was something I never really thought about, but definitely something that made me go like, wow, this company and this industry will make a difference.
Yep.
All right, back to you.
So I'm thinking about the best way to frame this. Basically, everything changes before the program and after the program. So job perspectives change as well. Your view of the world of work changes a lot before and after you do this. I won't talk specifically about career changes or career proposals or anything like that, because I believe that differs from person to person. So each person will have a different experience, but we do have this strong feeling, at least I had all throughout the process, that this is a massive, perhaps the biggest selection process the world has seen, because you have to select 46 or 47 people amongst more than 200,000. So this is basically you proving yourself to the world, and you're not only proving it for Adecco, you're proving it for the whole world. So you have it's hard to say that you have an advantage. I'm not going to frame it that way, but you got the experience that very few people were privileged to have. So you're able to take advantage of that because you acquired. My business sense improved a lot after I did the program. So I view things from a more business-like kind of view. I'm able to talk to people in the human resources industry with their so-called HR slang, because there is a lot of it. Sophia knows what I'm talking about, but you're able to basically see things from a new point of view, and new points of view are always appreciated. That's why this program is in place, so they can learn from us as well. So you have the advantage of knowing what you're doing. And Adecco, of course, people had talked to me about that, is always very happy on welcoming back the folks that went through the process, because you went through a giant, massive process and you've proven yourself to them. So you know who you have to talk to, and you have a connection with them, and that can definitely come out handy in a lot of times. But yeah, I believe that's basically it. There's a question that popped up here. How do different people from different places, different cultures made us grow? And ideas that we haven't thought before that we started thinking about now. So Sophia traveled a bit more than me, so I'll let her go with this one.
Okay. Interesting. I think the first thing and the biggest thing for me was definitely like the social interactions was very new to me. So I like spent my whole life in Asia, well, like the majority of my life in Asia, in China specifically. So I would say being able to travel the world, see how people greeted each other, how people, you know, interacted at dinners, or like the social aspect to me was actually quite fascinating, because, you know, maybe you watch it in TV, but you don't really see and experience it in real life. So I think that would be the first thing, like being able to see like the human interaction parts of different cultures. And then second, I think more specifically to kind of the business world, one thing that Alon really likes to do is, like, before we go into each meeting, he'll kind of give me like a, oh yeah, like, you know, this country, you know, has been doing well, like the last couple of years have been doing this, or like, oh yeah, this country, you know, I don't know, maybe has been having like political, for example, like Hong Kong, right? We had protests. So like business obviously wasn't doing well because retail was doing bad. So, you know, naturally Hong Kong's business results were not that great. So Alon would give me some context for like what is happening outside of just like Adecco Group, right? You think about like what's happening in the country and then how that's impacting the business. And I thought that was also very unique. So in a sense, it gave me a better sense of what was happening in the world, which I didn't know. And then especially during dinners, when I talked to some of the like country CEOs, they would tell me like, oh yeah, you know, recently we've been having these laws, these issues. And to me, I also learned a lot that way. So my awareness of what was happening in the world also increased. And I guess the third thing is, because we come from such different backgrounds, we come up with different ideas. So as I mentioned, during like Global Boot Camp, we had a lot of like teamwork opportunities. And what I noticed is, like, when I first went, I was like, oh yeah, I like have all these great ideas. And then I realized a lot of people had also knew that, or like have even better ideas because they had different experience than I had. So I could tell that when I was working in a group at Global Boot Camp, people brought like really good quality ideas. They also brought in a lot of their own experience, and we were able to shape really good, like the products that came out of our projects, right? Like our final deliverable were always very impressive. Like if you told me to do it with just anyone I could find on the street, it might have been a very different, because we all come from the same background. We all have, you know, the same exposure. So I thought the product that we were able to provide was quite unique. So sum up, you know, being able to see different cultural social interactions, being able to see how different things are impacting the businesses in different countries. And of course, the third part is coming up with different ideas and coming up with good ideas, because we do have different experiences. But yeah, back to you.
Yep. I think she was more than complete. So I'll just give a quick ending to that. The more cultures you have working together, the more diverse the result will be. So there's always this very big importance that is layered upon diversity. And it basically means that you're covering all the fronts. For example, in a business solution, you can't think of one major, say, client segment and leave the other behind. So you gotta have diversity within the groups you're working with, so you can really cover all the fronts. So that really makes a huge difference. And when we talk diversity, we're talking about all kinds of diversity, and that involves diversity of countries as well, diversity of cultures, because something you plan for South America may not work in North America, which may not work in Europe, which may not work in Southeast Asia, and might not work in Australia. So if you have people from all those different places, that makes your solution a lot better diversity wise. So that is really great. Got a lot of questions about the global bootcamp, but there is one over here that I loved the most, which is what happens at the global bootcamp. Basically, there are a couple of YouTube videos in the Adecco channel, the CEO for a Month YouTube channel that you guys can check out. They cover each one of the days of the global bootcamp, and we had these guys working on the night. So, for example, on day one, the guys, we were sleeping and they were making the video for day 0. And on day 2, they were at night making the video for day 1. And they will release it in the end of the next day. So that was really cool to see. Sophia, do you want to talk a little bit about the Global Bootcamp?
Yeah. So the Global Bootcamp, I think, let me, I think there are a few components. I would say, like, first, as I mentioned, there is a lot of like team interaction. You do work with the other, the top 10 finalists a lot, which is really great. So of course, going in, I thought like, oh, they'll like interview me, talk to me, blah, blah, blah. But actually, no, they really want to see how you work with each other. And I'm glad they did that, because I had so much fun working with the other global finalists. So that's the first thing. And then second of all, there is some individual components to it, right? So like, it could have been like presenting like your own projects or like some of your own ideas. And I thought that was, that's the part that maybe I could have controlled a bit more, right? So that was fun. And then I think the third part, which was also very cool, is they actually try to bring in a lot of kind of like extracurricular activities, right? Like they give you the opportunity to see the city, to like do different activities around, and also to be able to like interact with people, just to have some downtime. And I think that was a lot of fun, and you learn a lot more about the people around you and the other finalists. I think broadly speaking, those are kind of the 3 main things. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, so G, feel free to add. Trying to recall what was happening. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, for sure.
Yeah, I remember when we were having dinner in the first day at that cozy kind of dark place. Do you remember that? And then all of a sudden we were having our dinner, and they come up with these sheets and they say, hey, you got your first assignment. Start working on your assignment. We were just eating. I just want to eat in peace. Yeah. But no, it was really started over there, the whole surprise. And it was really nice. We had to do an activity for Win for Youth. I don't know if you guys are familiar in any way with Win for Youth, but that is the other flagship program of the Adecco Group Foundation, which focuses on quality of life regarding sports. So they encourage the people that work with Adecco, the people that are hired for other companies through Adecco, basically everyone that has any sort of relationship with Adecco to track there's a record of sports and count it towards money that will be donated to charity in the end. So based on the amount of kilometers that we ran, we cycled, we swam, Adecco will give money based on that in the end to charity. So that's really a flagship program, because it works by both balancing the work-life balance with sports, and it also ends up helping charity. So you cover 2 completely different things in a totally innovative approach. And by the ways, you guys can already start recording for Win for Youth, and we can see if you guys have done it or not. So you better start doing it right now. No, that's No, that's a bit of a joke, but you guys can actually register for Win for Youth. I believe one of the categories for Win for Youth is CEO for a month. You can register as a person associated with CEO for a month and start counting your working hours, sports hours for Win for Youth. So that would be really great as well. But going back to the boot camp, a lot of things happen in the boot camp, and totally random things at times that we don't see the purpose from the start, but in the end we all end understanding it. So for example, I'm not sure if I can say this.
Exactly. I was like, I'm not sure what I should be
Yes,
be saying, because
yeah, but no, for example, I'm sure they'll change this question to next year. I don't see a lot of problems in saying you're going to a desert island and you can pick 2 items to carry with you to that island. Which items do you pick? And they stare at you and they wait for your answer. And they're looking at you. And you gotta be thinking about your answer. And you better
you're in the room alone. They're all staring at you. Yeah. I remember that.
So a lot of random things happen, but in the end they all have a bigger purpose, and sometimes it's quite exhausting, but it's very rewarding in the end. Despite the results, it doesn't matter if you don't go to the top 5 or if you go to the top 5 and don't become global, you always come out with a hugely awesome experience in the end. So I won't spoil anymore. I already spoiled you guys with a question that we had, but prepare for surprises. That is the best way to put it. So yeah, I had this question pop up. Like, what is the change of the image of the CEO before and after the program? So before, you have this view that the CEO is this very highly ranked person with a lot of responsibility under their shoulders, and what changes afterwards? So I'll talk a little bit about Andre. You guys had the chance to talk a little bit with Andre right now, and he's in the call actually. But basically, your perspective changes 100% before and after. And I gotta be really careful with what I'm gonna say over here because he's in the call. But basically, he's a really funny guy. It's kind of hard to understand him at first because he speaks Portuguese from Portugal. But after 1 week, you're talking almost with Portuguese with him, and he has a very fast way of processing things, and in the end you're processing things just as fast as him, and you can see that he's really trying to learn from you as much as you're learning from him. So reverse mentoring is not something that is just spoken and not practiced. No, it's operating 100% of the time you're the CEO. So that is really, really great to have alongside you. So Sophia can talk a little bit about Hong Kong, or perhaps even Alan himself, but be careful.
Yeah. I guess for me, there are like a few things that kind of made me go like, huh? I think first is they're all very, at least relative to me, I'm quite a spontaneous person. So for me, they're all very disciplined, which I think is very admirable. You know, they manage to still work out on top of being in meetings for like 12 hours a day. So to me, like, I would just lay around the couch, you know, watch TV. So being able to see that kind of discipline and that kind of like that in action was very admirable. I think that was the first thing that kind of caught me by surprise, because I remember in Hong Kong, Janet would always want to have meetings at like 8:45, which actually is not that early now that I think about it, but for me was quite early, and I would always like, you know, run into office at like 8:44 and 59 seconds. So to be able to add some discipline to my life was great. Second is I realized that, you know, at the end of the day, these CEOs, they are all very curious and they're all very willing to learn. And I think that is one of the key attributes that actually help them a lot along the way, and is something that is really needed, because say for example, when you go to like a meeting and you meet with your whole team, you have to be curious to ask them the right questions, to go like, what is really happening in your business or your department? Like, why is this happening, right? And at the same time, also be willing to learn. So as G mentioned, to learn from your CEO for 1 month, to be able to take in advice and to see what to do with it. I think those are all very important things that a CEO, like attributes that CEO should have, and also something that I was able to physically see in action. So yeah, disciplined, and I guess curiosity / willingness to learn.
Yep. So our time is getting near the end. We're not, unfortunately, going to be able to cover all the questions, but I tried to answer them in a manner that would cover as many different questions as possible, because a lot of them were kind of similar, but not very similar. So I tried to do an average between them, so to speak. And I hope I was able to cover the most of it. But besides, we have the WhatsApp group of the 50 candidates, and you guys can ask questions from there, and it's totally fine. I'm going to be answering them. But one last question to finish everything, touching on that thing of talking about the CEO. Is it actually scary to work as CEO for a month while you're an undergraduate student, or if you have just graduated? Totally. It's absolutely freaking scary. It's the scariest thing that I've faced on my life, but it's totally rewarding in the end. In the first week, you have no idea what you're doing. And on the second week, you have even less. But in the end, you're just having a great time, and you're learning a lot of things, and you're talking with great people, and you're trying to actually improve upon the business while the business improves upon you. So it's a two-way street, and it's very, very rewarding in the end. You kind of end it thinking, hey, I might have an idea of what a CEO does actually. So that is a great start. But is someone trying to speak something? Not sure. No. So that was it. I hope we have answered most of the questions. Again, unfortunately, not all of them, but feel free to ask on the WhatsApp group. We'll be happy to answer them. But I believe that's it. So, Sophia, any last comments to add?
No, I just wanted to say good luck to everyone. Have fun. This is going to be, it definitely is one of the most memorable experiences I will have in my life. And I hope you guys all get the chance to experience that as well. And of course, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. You can probably find me on like LinkedIn or something. Always happy to talk to you guys, and thank you for staying up. And thanks for inviting me, G. It's been a blast.
Sure. Yeah, if you guys don't have a LinkedIn already, please create one, and you can feel free to add us to your connections. We'll be gladly accepting you guys, and you guys can reach us from there. We'll be more than happy to answer all the questions that you guys might have. So I believe that was it for today. Thank you guys so much for taking part in this. Ariel is recording this actually, and it's probably going to be on one of the communications channel. I'm not sure which one, but he'll be able to clarify this in the group. So talk to you guys in the next couple of days, and best of luck throughout the process.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.